Hello. We are live for a Carefree Expat Incubator member case study. And today I have an exciting guest to present to you, Sharon Miller. But before we do that, I want to make sure that if you're tuning in live, you can hear me. So if you can, please type in the comments yes, and feel free to share where you are joining from. So I'm going to wait to see who we've got, if people can hear me. All right. As I wait for that, I'm going to go on and um, tell you a little bit about what's going to happen today. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, give this a like, share it so that as many people who need to see this will see this. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to my channel because every week I post a new video about moving abroad, life in France, or finding the confidence and courage to live life on your terms. So I know you'll be inspired by those videos. All right. So who do we have here? We've got Karen, who is a member of the program. We've got Reka, who is a member of the program as well from New York. Hi, Dion. How are you? Good to see you. We miss you on the calls. Hi, Eleanor from Georgia. Bonjour. All right. So you guys can hear me. That is wonderful. So I want to let you know who I am if you are unfamiliar with me. I am Patricia Brooks, and I am a coach, mentor, and founder of the Carefree Expat Incubator Program. And I moved to the south of France more than 5 years ago. And I moved there from Richmond, Virginia. And I did it all by myself. And it was a scary thing to do. But when I had done it, it felt so amazing. And I realized that I wanted to help other single women who wanted to move abroad, move through fear and self-doubt and move abroad confidently and in alignment with their core values. And so that's why I created the Carefree Expat Incubator Program. And today I'm going to share a story of a member who actually went through the program, made a move to Portugal, and we're going to hear all about that. If this sort of program sounds like something that you would be interested in joining, feel free to schedule some time on my calendar where we can talk about where you are and a little bit more about the program and see if it's a good fit. And so you can do that by going to the Courage Catalyst /future expat, and you can see that on the screen. All right. So now, today, for the good part, today I have the pleasure to speak with Sharon Miller. And she was born in Colorado, but lived in various places as a child, including Germany and the Netherlands. As a teen, she returned to the States and settled back in Colorado. She went on to attend the University of Ohio, where she met and married her late husband. Sharon returned to Denver, where she and her husband raised their son and lived in their home for over 30 years. Sharon worked as an administrator at a private school and later at a law firm, from which she retired in 2021. In 2020, during the COVID shutdown, Sharon moved to West Virginia, where she continued to work remotely for that Denver law firm. While she was there in West Virginia, one morning in April of 2021, she happened to see a headline in her Google feed that said something about Portugal being the best place for expats. And that headline brought back to her a memory she hadn't had for close to 50 years. And she was reminded that she'd seen herself living in Portugal, but she quickly dismissed it because at the time she was at university and she was majoring in Spanish and with a minor in French. And so Portugal was not really on her radar. However, once that memory came back to her, she could not forget it. So after doing loads of research and joining the Carefree Expat Incubator and enrolling in an online Portuguese language course, Sharon moved to Faro, Portugal in October of 2022. And she has integrated so well there. She's volunteering at ReFood. She's traveling the country to get to know it better. And she's spending lots of quality time with her new friends. So I want you to join me in welcoming Sharon Miller. Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you.
All right. So, are you ready for us to dig in?
I'm as ready as one can be.
All
Yes.
right. All right. So, I guess I really want to kick things off with getting a better understanding of, you know, the story that you share about having this idea that, oh, one day I'm going to live in Portugal, because I feel like that is a very unique story.
Well, I don't have much detail because it is a long forgotten memory. But oh, by the way, I didn't go to Ohio University. I went to Wright State University in Ohio, but
Oh,
just a
okay.
minor correction.
My
Um,
bad. Sorry.
and I was sitting in the library one day, and whether I was daydreaming or I don't know where this thought came to me, but I actually could see myself sitting in Portugal. I could describe to you what the room looked like, what I was wearing. It was cold, and I had on a warm white sweater and a blanket on my lap. Um, and I remember seeing that and knowing it was Portugal. And I immediately said to myself, Portugal? Why am I thinking about Portugal? I should be imagining myself living in Spain or
Mhm,
France. And
mhm,
I immediately just let it go.
mhm.
And then fast forward in April of 2021, it just was a lovely spring morning sitting out on my deck that looked over forest, my backyard that was a forest. And Googling, and this headline came up about Portugal. And immediately that image came back to me.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I saw myself living in Portugal someday. I wonder if there's something to that. So I looked into it and found, yes, there is definitely something to that. This is my home.
Yeah. And so you've been in Faro, Portugal for about 6 months now, right?
6.5 months.
Six and
Mm-hmm.
a 6.5. Can't forget that half. So, what is what is it what does it feel like to actually be living in a place that many, many, many years ago you had a fleeting thought that, oh, one day I'm gonna live here.
Sometimes it feels unreal. I sort of have to pinch myself to make sure that it's not a dream.
Mhm.
Um, Other days it feels like, what am I doing here? Why did I choose to, leave friends and family and move here? Um, when I first arrived, I was kind of, Google eyed. I mean, everything was brand new.
Mhm.
Everything from a trip to the market to, getting money from the ATM, walking the cobblestone sidewalks. Everything was brand new. And I felt a
Mhm.
little bit like a baby must feel
Yes. Yes.
discovering everything,
Mhm.
and really enjoyed it. Um, Loved speaking to people, just someone at the grocery store, the woman at the cheese shop, when she handed me my cheese, she said thank you, and I in Portuguese, obrigada, and I immediately responded obrigada eu, which means, oh no, thank you. And that came tripping right off my tongue, and that was really a highlight moment for me.
Mhm.
And and I think it kind of is a backdrop to everything that I continue to experience. I speak Portuguese to a Portuguese person every single day. Even if, it's a small transaction or a conversation. A woman hugged me on the street one day. I helped another woman who apparently had collapsed, and her friend was trying to help her and hold her up. So I stopped and helped them out. And every time my heart sings. That's the only way I can describe it. I feel I get a lot of that, oh my goodness, kind of feeling.
Yeah. And I think that being able to connect with somebody because you're speaking their language, a language that wasn't yours before, but now is, right?
Yes.
Yes. It's an incredible feeling, and to be understood too, because for me, right, that was a big thing. Okay, I'm saying this, and when they respond in the right way, I'm like, oh, okay. Can't be too bad.
I have a story about that just happened the other day. In my volunteer shift at ReFood, I said something wrong in Portuguese, and it was really silly. And they laughed at me, and not, making fun of me. They were laughing with me. And that was an exciting moment to me as well, because I felt one of them. I felt I was part of the crowd. They felt comfortable enough to laugh with me. And I loved that.
Yes, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So let's, one of the things that I work with the members of the program on is defining why you want to move abroad, why you want to turn your life upside down so completely, so that you have something that anchors you when it gets challenging, something that inspires you to continue on. Why did you want to move? I know that you had the story, but why? What was your why for wanting to move to Portugal?
I want to live a simple life in Portugal, unencumbered by things, immersed in a lovely landscape, surrounded by friendly people, good food, good wine, and a beautiful, if challenging, language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the simple life is an important piece of your why. Where did where did your whole why come from? Where did the idea of living a simple life come from? What is that connected to?
Well, I think I was able to come to an articulation of why I really want to move to Portugal out of getting in touch with my values. We all have values, but most of the time we don't know what they are. And one of the, if not the first exercise in the Carefree Expat Incubator Program is to be able to say what your values are and then prioritize them. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that came up for me as a value was simplicity, living a simple life. Mm-hmm. And that I connected with that immediately. Mm-hmm. And then, working further and recognizing that I do want to connect with people. I do want to be part of a community. And I want to enjoy all that this environment gives to me. Mm-hmm. And so out of that, because I was able finally, and it took a few coaching calls mm-hmm. to finally articulate my values at that time, I was able to articulate my why. And I will say that my why really was like a North Star mm-hmm. as I was preparing to move. And I discovered after being here for about, I think 3 or 4 months, 5 months, it is still my North Star. And so it informs a lot of my living in Portugal, because the other thing I discovered was you go through this process and it's an arduous, challenging, scary, expensive process to get here. Mm-hmm. And now what? Now what? Okay. Now what does it look like to live a simple life in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that why in front of me, I was able to establish some goals and objectives for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, so I want to dig in a little bit more there, because when you move abroad and you don't know anybody, or you may know somebody you met, on the internet, right? It's challenging to get out there, meet people, really integrate in the culture. And after 6.5 months, you have done a bang up job with that. You're the poster child for it. And it sounds like your why statement, as you say, is your North Star. And I love that. And I'm going to steal that. But can you share, how you've been able to integrate so well? You volunteer at ReFood, you go to soccer matches all of the time, you are, hanging out with the locals, right? You're giving parties for the locals. So can you share how, because I think that's something that is daunting for people. It's like, oh, if I move abroad and I don't know anybody, how will I integrate? So can you give us some pointers?
Well, the first thing I do have to say is that I am so lucky and so blessed. Carlos and Rosa, who own my apartment, from whom I rent my apartment, are the best landlords in the world, and they became my first friends. Mm-hmm. And they took me out to lunch. I've been to their house. I've had them over to my house a couple of times. So having that, really helped. Mm-hmm. And then I met another woman that lives here in my building, and she and I discovered we have things in common, and she's become my walking buddy. And so we share that and some social life. We go to concerts together, things like that. So I think some of this was just luck, I guess, luck and or being open to the experience, being open to people showing up for you. Mm-hmm. And my love for soccer is part of it too. I just started going to the matches. I immediately became a partner in the team. I carry a card that says I'm a partner, and don't understand what they're saying when they're chanting, but I become involved with that. Mm-hmm. So that's helpful. It's almost as if soccer is international. So if you speak soccer, you can get around anywhere. So there was that. Pardon me. Another piece was I like to speak to, the first people that I would speak to outside of that little circle were people in shops. And I like to show off my Portuguese, and then it kind of, that becomes a conversation starter. Where are you from? And do you like in Faro? And, and there was one morning in the little coffee shop that's downstairs from me where you could go and have a lovely coffee and pastry, and they sell ice cream and great lunches, and it's fabulous. But I had been going there daily, and I noticed there was a woman that I saw who also went there daily by herself. She knew people, so she was always talking to someone. But I thought, I see this woman every single day, and I don't know who she is. So one day I kind of screwed up my courage to just go over to her and introduce myself and speak to her. And I did. And it was difficult. And I sat at my table thinking, oh, I'm just going to annoy her. But I finally had the thought, if I don't do this now, I will never do this. Mm-hmm. So I took a deep breath and got up from my chair and went and spoke to her. Mm-hmm. And it was just lovely. And one of the things that I've discovered is that people who live in Faro, who are from Faro, love to talk about Faro. So I learn a lot that way too.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was a combination of things, of luck, of, having your why statement as a North Star, of being open and having that energy so that people are attracted to you. and working to build your courage to step out of your comfort zone and do things that might not necessarily be easy, but will help you to live your why.
Yes. Yes.
You mentioned, you had to muster up the courage in that instance, and you're living, I can tell you're beaming as you're talking about your life there, right? It comes through the computer. But before you made your move, you decided you were going to join the Carefree Expat Incubator Program. Can you share a little bit more about why you decided to take that leap?
Yes. I saw a post that you did on the She Hit Refresh Facebook group, and I connected with you right away. That post just spoke to me. But at that moment, I really was thinking I was going to do this move myself. That, it's a matter of getting your paperwork together and sending in your visa application. I can do this. I had no intention of asking, or certainly not paying someone to help. And I was in West Virginia. My brother and his wife also lived there. And my brother and I became very close. And I pictured my brother as being kind of a hand holder, just someone, because he's there. I can run ideas by him. I can ask, what do you think of this? Have him proofread my documents, that sort of thing. So I thought he would be there. Well, at the end of January 2022, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness and went into hospice care. And so I knew immediately two things. One, I was not going to change my plan to move. And he was adamant about that I definitely need to move. And two, I no longer had my hand holder. Mm. So one of the things I did, I believe that I purchased your book, Live a Bold Life, because that was maybe in the Facebook group, and started listening to that. And it was your voice and some of the questions that you asked and exercises that you gave. I thought, yeah, this speaks to me. This is my kind of thing. So I signed up for the call, a half-hour call. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't recall what the questions were that you asked, but I knew those are questions I need to answer. Mm-hmm. So in that moment, I signed up for the Carefree Expat group. And I remember telling you, though, in the call, I'm looking for somebody to hold my hand. I do recall saying that. And at that time, I thought, there would be help with administrative kinds of things, all the things you have to do to get your visa, that sort of thing. I signed up on the spot, had no idea what I was getting into. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the best things that I have ever done. Yeah.
You had no idea what you were getting yourself into, yet it was one of the best things you'd ever done. And I think I remember hearing you say on one of the calls was that before this was something, you're a pretty independent person. You can figure things out. You can do things on your own. One of the things I remember you saying was, yeah, sure, I could have done it on my own. But, as I mature, I recognize that I don't have to, and there are people out there to help you. And you saw this program as a way to do that. And I think that that's a lesson for all of us that, if we can do it on our own, but if it could be easier, or if we could have companionship, or camaraderie in doing it, then it might be worth it. But I want to get back to this point about how you said this is the best thing that you ever did, but you didn't know what you were getting yourself into. What did you get yourself into? What is being in the program like?
Well, oh my goodness. This program, I meet with a group of women every week who are like-minded and all who have a goal of living a bold life and living abroad. Mm-hmm. And every one of us has, we have very similar issues, even though we are totally different personalities. We live in all different parts of of the US and even in some other countries currently, we all want to move someplace different. Some people to the same places, but we have those are distinctions, but we're all after the same thing finally. And what that is entails a lot of inner work. It is so much more than figuring out how to fill out the visa application. It is so far beyond getting your house ready to sell, which is a good example because in getting your house ready to sell and getting rid of things, there is a whole lot of stuff that comes up internally for us. And I'll continue with that example that in the coaching calls, when we talk about how difficult it is to get rid of our books, or should I keep this? Should I ship things over? That sort of thing. We often get stuck. We get to a point where I can't decide. Should I keep my harp or not? And what happens is I ended up on this fence. I don't know what to do. I'm going to sit here. And what happens is because I'm sitting on that fence, I'm doing nothing. And through the coaching calls, and one of the things is that as a group, we have so many insights together. And what other people in the group say is what speaks to me. And I say, oh yeah, that's what I've been struggling with. Or, wow, that really helps me. So it's in this group that we're able to note that we're stuck, figure out, okay, what is it that's keeping us stuck? And then land on one side or the other of the fence and be fine with it. Whichever side you land on, it's going to be all work out. And now take the next step on whichever side you are.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. And I think one of the things that you came to a realization about during one of the calls was that being able to commit, being able to decide and commit to an action actually was very beneficial to you. You came up with a quote that I quoted in my last video. Do you care to share that with us?
Well, I will. And the quote is actually, I think it's from Goethe or someone.
Oh,
so
it's not yours. Okay.
I
misappropriated it.
Yeah, it's my way of saying that once you have committed yourself, all sorts of things will happen that otherwise could not have happened. And, that's a good segue from jumping off the fence. Jumping off the fence is the commitment.
Yeah.
Right? If you're sitting on that fence, nothing else can really happen for you. Once you've jumped off the fence, you've made that commitment. You've taken an action. And what is so surprising is once you've taken that action, other things happen. They just occur, apparently just occur, but you've created an opening for them by committing.
Yeah. And I think you've created that opening that then other things fall into place. And then it's just like, oh, okay, this is happening. Right.
Yes.
And when that happens, right, when you start to take action, you make a commitment, you take a small step, and then things start to happen, there can be a sense of, oh my gosh, this is getting real, right? And there can be fear, there can be self-doubt, there can be questioning about, am I doing the right thing? Did you experience any of that? And how, if so, how were you able to work through that?
Yes, I experience that frequently. And first of all, through the program, working in the coaching groups and also using some skills that you were able to provide to recognize that fear, to recognize, when I think about, oh my God, this is really happening. what happens next? Or what if, I mean, it's frequently this, yeah, but what if it doesn't work out at the end? What if I miss my flight to Lisbon? What if, all these what ifs? To have that thought, realize that it creates this kind of fear. And again, you can get so caught up in that fear that you're stuck again. And so you realize, okay, I'm stuck. I'm not taking the action that maybe I otherwise would have. Or I just, toss everything up and say, oh, I don't feel like doing this anymore. It's like being in the middle of labor and saying, oh, I didn't really want to have a baby. It's that kind of thing. But the ability to first of all, recognize that when it comes up, and then to look at and to see, okay, I've just had this thought. What if it doesn't work out? What thought can I replace that with? And how does that make me feel? And now, what kind of action can I now take that will lead to the result that I really want?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that come up frequently in the calls, or often in the calls, is, that what if this happens? What if I don't have enough money? What if? And you will just very calmly say, well, what if you do? What if it does work out? And to actually start to think about, oh yeah, what if this does work out? And then, and often for me, again, I want to go back to the why as my North Star, because a lot of times in that moment of fear or doubt, I tell myself, Anne, you want to live a simple life in Portugal, unencumbered by things, and you want friendly people. And so that's how you're going to meet people, is by getting up off the chair and introducing yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. You keep mentioning about these calls, right?
Yes.
So before you moved abroad, you were attending calls, right? Now that you are in Portugal, you're still attending calls, right?
Yes.
And I think that I just want to point out that that's the beauty of this program, because you have access to coaching once you actually get to the place that you're going to be in, and it really starts to get real, and you can have some feelings come up for you that could cause you to not have such a good experience.
Right.
You mentioned something when we spoke prior about how moving abroad is not living abroad, or getting abroad is just a starting point. Can you share a little bit more about how you feel about how you've experienced that?
Well, yes. And I'm not even entirely certain anymore how it came up for me, but there was a moment in my life here where I realized, okay, I did what I said I was going to do. I achieved my objective. I have moved to Portugal. So now what? And again, went right back to my why and said, so what is living a simple life in Portugal? What does that look like? And, I think I said this earlier, I started creating goals and objectives for myself. And then I come to the coaching group for accountability. That, one of the most important things that I got from the coaching group weekly is, when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to be held accountable for getting that done. And that still helps me out in my life. And, I think if I had a partner or, someone else with me in my life, when we're raising our children, for example, we have accountability right in front of us all the time. And I don't have that. And I like having someone else that I need to answer to. There are tasks that I want to complete that I don't have to do right away. I can do it anytime. And in the coaching call yesterday, I had the thought, well, yeah, but why not right now? And so I ask you to keep me accountable for that for the next coaching call. Yeah.
And how is that working out for you?
How is that working? Well, it's working out really beautifully. First of all, I know what I want to do and why I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those was, you had mentioned my volunteer work at ReFood. I had made myself a goal that in 1 year's time, I will be good enough in Portuguese that I can do volunteer work. And my objectives always have a time, a by when date. And I committed at the coaching call that day that I would walk over to ReFood, make sure it was a walk that I was willing to commit to doing on a regular basis, and just know where it is. And so I walked over and the door was open. So I popped my head in and I said, hi, someday I'd like to be a volunteer here when I know enough Portuguese. And the thing is, I can speak Portuguese fairly well. I have difficulty understanding. So that's what I told her. And she said, oh, that will be no problem at all. And the young fellow who was working there also kind of laughed. And he said, oh, that won't be a problem at all. And she signed me up. And I started working the very next week. So, yeah.
When you commit, things start to happen. Yeah.
Yes.
And I love that you'd put, and I questioned, well, why a year? Why a whole year? But I didn't push. I'm like, okay, you answered it. And I'm like, that's her goal. Just keep it there. And then you came back the next week saying, oh yeah, I have an interview. Oh yeah, I'm starting, like what?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that accountability kind of gets you to do something that you might not do sooner, and then have the results sooner so that you can, grow more quickly, experience the life you want more fully.
Yes.
Yeah.
And during my process of getting ready to move abroad, one of the things that was really helpful to me was the accountability for my language lessons, because they're all online. It's up to me to decide if I'm going to be doing it today or not. Mm-hmm. And I had committed to, I forget what it was, half an hour a day or something like that. And you held me accountable for that every week. If I didn't accomplish it, what was in the way? And there might have been things that I needed to take a look at. What's going on that keeps me from doing this? But that, that made a huge difference for me in learning to speak the language.
Yeah. Now, I just want to say, if you have questions for Sharon, feel free to type them in the chat, because I've got more questions, but if you have specific questions you want answered, please type them in the chat. Now, you are living this dream, right? But what do you think your life would be like now if you had not committed to joining the Carefree Expat Incubator Program and showing up week after week to the calls? What do you think? Where do you think you would be right now?
I don't know. I think it's just so hard to really speculate about the road not taken.
Yes.
And I can look at that, and I can easily see that I might have just decided, oh, I'm just going to stay in the States. I'm going to stay where I am. And I would, I could have been perfectly happy. I mean, my life was great. It was great in Denver before I moved to West Virginia. It was great in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. There was no reason to leave my life where I was. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I would have just, done the work myself and, made the move. That's, those are both possibilities along that road not taken. But what I do now, I think I can really confidently say that either way, I would be floundering in a sense. I wouldn't know what my goals and objectives are in my life. I would not have expanded as a person the way I have. I certainly wouldn't have met the people that I've met, and really, expanded my community across the world.
Mm-hmm.
There is just a lot of personal growth there because I joined the Carefree Expat group, and it continues to anchor me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, it's difficult to know, what where you would be, to speculate, but you feel like definitely being a part of the program has helped you to be more grounded in your life now, in this move abroad, and well, this leads to the other question. Another question I have for you is, so the program helps you with accountability and staying on task, and you've got the community of like-minded women. Are there other ways that the program has changed you or helped you grow as a person?
Helped me grow as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say that the program has allowed me to create more accountability to myself, to recognize that, and here I'm quoting from the Amazon Prime production of Daisy Jones and the Six. There is a song that has the line, "All I need is a promise I can keep to myself." And I think the group has enabled me, given me the skills, given me the tools to create that, to be conscious of that and what it is that I am promising to myself, and how to keep that.
Yeah, keeping a promise to yourself. And I think that the why statement is a promise, right?
Yes. The why statement is a promise. And out of that, and I'd like to just back up a little bit too, because before I wrote down my goals and objectives, I revisited my why to say, is that still real? Does that still light me up when I say this is why I'm in Portugal? But revisited that early exercise of getting in touch with my values again. And it was out of going through that process a second time that I was able to create those goals and objectives for myself.
Yeah. So you're speaking about the program has two parts. There's the group weekly group coaching and mentoring calls, as well as the online curriculum that takes you through the why statement, that takes you through who do I need to become, what beliefs do I need to change or shift so that I can see myself as the kind of person who's living abroad confidently. And so there's lifetime access to the program. So you have lifetime access to not only the calls, but also to the curriculum. And so what you have done is you have gone back to the curriculum now that you're in Portugal and are using it in a way that, okay, the goal has been achieved, you're living in Portugal, but used it to help you to better integrate, to actually live your why statement and see if that why statement is still the reason that you want to be in Portugal. And then from there, that has helped you to set those goals and objectives, has gotten you to volunteer so much sooner than you otherwise would have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're it's helped you to be more intentional, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. That's a good way of putting that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are you most grateful for about your experience with the program?
Pardon me. That's also a hard question to answer because there's so much, but I think boiling it down, it really is the coaching calls. It really is meeting this, what I call these women are now my tribe, meeting these women and watching the process in them, not only going through it myself, but watching them. and actually watching sometimes physical transformations right in front of my eyes, during that. And they offer so much to me so that I, re-examine in myself. Mm-hmm. So I think that is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. Another part too, that I also remember that when I first joined the program, I was looking for a kind of administrative outline. Mm-hmm. I knew that there are a whole bunch of pieces to this jigsaw puzzle. What do I do first? Do I sell my house first? Do I, apply for the visa first? Do I do this? Do I do that? And I was looking for that. Mm-hmm. What I did not know is that while we were doing all of this inner work in the curriculum and in the coaching calls, all of those pieces would fall into place just because as we looked at what we had in front of us and how we make that happen, all of the administrative pieces came together as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when you tackle anything big, like a move abroad, and you've never done something like that before, there can be a bit of overwhelm about what to do and when. And in the program, in the curriculum, there is in module 3, there is a whole outline of things that you need to consider. There's a way for planning and all of that. But in talking through, where you are, what scares you, what you're unsure of, things start to fall out that, oh, well, now I need to do this. Now I need to, contact a lawyer. Now I need to do X, Y, or Z. And that overwhelm starts to kind of dissipate, and you can move forward more clearly, more confidently.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I want to ask you this. You've made the move. You had this idea, this vision, this whatever, premonition many years ago that living in Portugal was something you would do one day. And you got reminded of it. And, a year and a half later, after that idea resurfaced, you made your move. And I guess the question is, you've done it, right? What recommendation would you give to somebody who is considering making a move abroad?
Well, going back to this North Star, have a North Star. You need to know, I think, to know why you're doing this. It is huge. It's a huge thing to do, to move abroad. And to know really why you are moving there, not simply why you want to leave the country where you currently are. And there are many various reasons why you might want to do that. Mm-hmm. But why are you going there? Mm-hmm. And having that as your guide mm-hmm. gets you so many places once you get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you make a really good point about, there may be reasons that you want to leave the place you are, but know, what you're running toward versus what you're running from. And that will help you to kind of move through the process.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say that I am so pleased with your progress, with your in the program. And one of the things that I was a little bit surprised about, because people are where they are, they're in different places in their journeys. And one of the things that you mentioned was that the calls helped you work through fear and self-doubt. And I was like, oh, really? Because you came into the program, you signed up immediately. There was that level of confidence just in that. And then you showed up to the calls and you asked questions and you participated, and there seemed to be, this confidence about you. And yet there was there was something inside you that you were able to, or things that you are able to work through, fears, self-doubts. Could you share a little bit more about how that has helped you, with your true confidence? Because, you can have that surface confidence and then you can have that inner confidence.
Yeah, I think so. These moments of doubt and fear just are going to come up all of the time. At least they do for me. And working through them, acknowledging, yes, I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have no clue what I'm doing. But to be able to take a breath, step back, and say, but what is it you're after? To be afraid and still take the step forward is a big deal. I mean, that's courage, is to be afraid and do it anyway. And so to be able to actually work through the doubt, through the fear, and again, I'm harping on the why a lot.
But it's important. It's the first thing in the program for a reason, right?
And sometimes it does not, I'm not standing there thinking, oh my gosh, I have to go to my CEF appointment. I mean, I was a wreck getting ready for my CEF appointment, which is the appointment with the Immigration Service where you apply for your residency card after being here for a while. And I was a wreck. And this, what if it doesn't work out? I mean, what if for some reason I don't have the right paper? What if they decide they don't want me in Portugal? Knowing all the while that is so unlikely, but it was almost as if I needed to be afraid. And I could recognize that's the thought I'm having, and that's what I'm feeling. And all I can do is make sure I have all of my paperwork together, check it off on the list, have the application filled out with no typos. That's what I can do. I'm going to focus on that. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. And I think having that skill, right? Because when you are living abroad and you have to go to these immigration appointments, or you go open an account at a bank, or whatever the thing is that day that's going to be scary. Yes. Having that skill to kind of calm yourself down and move through that, in a way that you're still able to think, right? Because fear shuts down your ability to think, I think is huge. It's huge. And so that's wonderful. There is a question in the chat. It's not specifically for you, Sharon. Linda Houston has asked, what is the cost of coaching, and is it posted on the website? And this is by application only program. So if you are interested, Linda, please schedule a call with me and we can talk through the whole process and the investment. Okay. If there are, we've got about 5 more minutes. If you do have questions for Sharon, now is the time to drop them in the chat. I want to ask you about that. So you had said earlier on in the conversation that you really hadn't had this idea of getting support with your move abroad. You were capable and of doing it on your own. And then you realized that, well, you could use some help in doing it. And you signed up, you made the investment. So the question I have for you was the investment in the Carefree Expat Incubator Program worth it?
Absolutely, without a doubt, and many times over. When my conversation with my sister last night, she asked me, well, how much did it cost? And I had to go look it up. I hadn't kept track of all my timelines and costs. And I looked it up, and I was amazed That's what it was. And my sister even said, for what you are getting from it, oh my goodness, that is well worth the investment. And it really was. I mean, it's hard when you are getting ready to make this move, and there are some cash outlays that you have to do. And I guess I'm going to say this, and that basically, if you can't make those cash outlays to get you to your move, maybe you need to rethink moving. That's just kind of an aside, but one of the things within this coaching group, one of the early things that you did was recommend that I join the Americans and Friends in Portugal Facebook group, where they have, applying for a visa, man, they have it down. They've got their files and their checklists, and it works. And you recommended that I seek that kind of support. Mm-hmm. And I had avoided it because I tended to sort of avoid Facebook, but I finally made that. And that was, great that you suggested that. And then, looking for an apartment, opening a bank account, things like that, all of which, yes, I could have done myself with a tremendous amount of effort, a tremendous amount of time, and probably a good deal of money as well. But you were the one who suggested, well, why not reach out for help? Are there people who can help you out with that? Well, yes, there is this fabulous attorney that I ended up hiring, Rosario Vital, who opened my bank account for me, who found this apartment for me, who, again, she's been worth her weight in gold for many, many reasons. Mm-hmm. So again, because I made that first step and committed to the Carefree Expat Incubator Program, I have all these people in my life, that I would not otherwise have had.
Yeah. So thank you. So there's another question, not specifically for you, Sharon, but what's the average size of the group, and do most of the participants stay involved after they've moved? So it depends on the day, and the day of the call and the day of the call. Calls are on Wednesdays and Saturdays. The calls can be as small as 2 people on a day, but on average, I'd say they are about 7 or 8 people on a call. To answer the question about, do most participants stay involved after? Right now, it's about 50%. So some stay, some don't. They have the option to come back at any time. And I think sometimes things may be going smoothly and you don't reach out for help when things are going smoothly. And then when they hit a hiccup, they may be back. So that's that. Thank you, Sarah, for that question. All right. So we are just about ready to wrap up. I do want to say that if anything that you heard in this call has excited you about, the program, consider scheduling a call with me so that you can learn a little bit more about it. You can talk through how you can gain benefit from the program, because I'd love to learn about where you are and where you want to be and how I might be able to help you get there sooner. And so you can do that. The link is on the screen, thecouragecatalyst.com/future expat. All right. So before we go, I want to thank Sharon so much for agreeing to share her experience with you all, because it's not an easy thing to do to get on a Facebook and a YouTube Live and share your experiences. But I do want to ask you one last question, Sharon. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Well, many things, but one of the things I do want to do is to give a shout out to my foreign language course and say, "Tô muito grata a Liz Sharma e Portuguese Pro. Sem vocês, não seria capaz de viver essa vida maravilhosa."
Yay! Like, yeah, and what'd she say? Good job. I love it.
Yeah.
And that language, learning the language, really helps to integrate as well. So thank
Yeah.
you once again, Sharon, for joining us today. Thank you, everybody who joined us on the call. I see a number of Expat Incubator members here. Veronica has joined, and I see some other people. Nerva has joined, Sarah Ellingston, Dina Campo, Beth Betteridge, Carlos
Oh, Beth.
Silva.
Hi, Beth.
Yeah, we've got Micheline, Catherine. So yeah, so we've had quite a nice audience. So thank you all for joining. Thank you once again, Sharon, and I look forward to seeing some of you on a call. All right, bye for now.
Bye-bye.